The theme, as you know, for this series is migration, one of the great strands of the exhibitions in this fine institution. In the previous series we covered identity in all its forms. This time we're looking at the, broadly speaking, the very many ways that migration defines who we are and where we came from and where we're going.
Well, the book arose out of a drive, a wish by myself and a number of colleagues to explain how come we're so entangled with Australia. So we wanted to look at the evolution of Trans-Tasman relations to understand multiple ties between Australia and New Zealand, and particularly to explain our present circumstances when, as an historian, used to reading and writing national histories, we've had separate national stories on each side of the Tasman ever since Australian Federation in 1901. So how come we're so closely enmeshed with Australia now? And so that's the purpose of the book.
The migration is okay, but it's that final day we're going to end up is what's on their mind. And I didn't want to posture that to them at that time, but the conversation got around to that. So a lot of my people are there. There's no doubt.
Just out of interest, you know, have Māori been in Australia long enough for them to start assuming an Australian Māori identity that's in any way distinguishable from here?
Definitely. You can see it on the web with new terms like you Google on the web. Māori Australia, there's a Māori directory, and there are terms like Aussie. And there are two initiatives that I know to establish Marae in Australia for the very reason you were saying at the start. One in Sunshine Coast and one in Sydney.
I haven't seen it in the one's probably my age, was about 30. 30 plus, but some of the older people, those who speak Māori, they retain their dialect and that. But the ones that have been born there and are much younger, you can hear the twang that makes them distinctly Aussie. So I don't know what to do about that in terms of bloody Aussies,
Speaking of the twang, our histories were much more bound up together until Australian Federation, weren't they?
Yes.
I'm interested in what happened, because we were given the option of joining.
Yes, we could have, and we stayed apart consciously. Yeah, so there's a slight whiff of superiority in the air. That, for example, New Zealand was founded without convict chains. The wonderful cartoon is showing us. So the cartoon is showing this convict ogre, and Zealandia, who represented New Zealand, and her sister Australia, and are separated by this convict ogre, who's holding hands with the noble savage, who could either be Pacific Islander or Māori. But the suggestion is, even though the treaties disappeared from the story, those time, but the notion of better race relations is there, and the notion that New Zealand, and that New Zealand can do very well without Australia, thank you, because we have the resources, sufficient resources to create our own grand, and we saw a grander future actually within the British Empire. At that stage, both the Australian colonies and New Zealand were renegotiating their relations with Britain.
But actually what we're talking about here is migrating a little of your culture over to them to give them a better understanding of where you're from.
I mean, in 2003, before we went to Athens, they got a team together, myself, Howie Tamati, Trevor Shaler, Wanda Davis, and what would be the Māori component of a team going overseas, because I think in Manchester that they had, all they could think of was the haka. And I was keen to see that there was a bit of a balance. Haka is the extreme, and I was keen to see proverbs involved as well as the philosophy of sport. We have a saying like, ka kite ko te ngāko, ka kite ko ngā whatu. Unless the heart sees, the eyes are never going to see. And I wanted a bit more deeper than just a haka. So that was my job in terms of getting over to, when we got to Athens, my heart was beating because I didn't know what I was going to say or do. I'd already said something, but I would talk to I'd pitch it out there and I'd say, here's Aotearoa. I'm talking from Aotearoa. We're well over in Athens. And I was pitching it up there rather than ramming it down their throats. Where's your mountain back home? Where's your rivers and your lakes? And those are the things that we identify with. You can understand how they don't call me Amster, they call me Hikurangi. So that's what, and so when you're talking about home, it's not hard for them to visualize the home, and the tears start coming down their eyes, and we underestimate the love that our and this is what Hamish Carter said. I'd been training in Europe for months and months and months, you know, and he said, I didn't know what I was training for. His coach was sitting there as well. And then he said until he heard the stuff that I was talking about in terms of what made, why they were there. So it's about our identity. It's about identity. No matter how far you go in the world, you know, you can go to space. I got to go back to Hikurangi, the place where I was brought up. So this is the stuff here. If you pitch it out there for everybody to have their own take on it, rather than throw it down here, that's important. So my job was to get the heart going. As I said before, unless the heart sees, the eyes will never see. That's the whakatauki or problem that I think at the beginning. And as I went from Athens, I went to the Winter Olympics as well, and I had some marvelous stuff there because it was it was winter time and the mountains were there and there was snow all over the mountains. And I thought of this wonderful proverb, "Uino ngā maunga whakahi kepe tīni." The majestic mountains sense the valleys below, asking where are the people? In our culture, people, mountains need people, people need mountains. So, and then there was the one where in skiing, ka rupu te kaua e kore a muri e hokia. When the mountain chair dives, there's no turning back. And anyway, I got home got the little old Rotorua, and the phone rings, and it's this lady from Cloudy Rider, is it? Cloudy Rider, she's the second in charge of it. She rang from Italy. My wife said, this lady on the phone is from Italy. And she said, it's Cloudy. I said, oh, Cloudy, what's wrong? I got him trying to first thinking what's happening. And this is, and she said, oh, it's nothing. She said, I've just got a ring from the guy that won the French down. He's won the gold medal from the slalom. He said, he's attributed my win to the stuff that I told him that you told us. So, what more can I say in terms of,
Well, all I can say is God did the Australian team either you or the equivalent of you. Where does our and the Australians' form of English come from? And how did you find out?
Right, well, where do we come from? I think now people would say that we are New Zealanders are a southeastern variety of English, and so are Australians, and so are South Africans. We have done research at the University of Canterbury. I mean, we've been extremely lucky. It's like finding gold in your attic. We found a wonderful collection of recordings in the Radio New Zealand archives down in Timaru, of recordings that were made in the 1940s of old New Zealanders.
And had they been just gathering dust and lost?
Well, they had just been there, and I don't think people had been using them. But there were recordings of people born in New Zealand in 1851, as early as that, and in the 1850s and 1860s.
What was it like when you first turned the tape?
I tell you, it was just incredible. As I say, it's like finding the valuable painting in the attic that we were given this huge gift. And it's made New Zealand quite exceptional in the world, because we are the only variety of native speaker English in the entire world where we've got recorded evidence of its whole history. That we've got recordings of people born one old lady born in 1851 and others in the 1850s. So we've been studying this at the University of Canterbury, and we found out quite a lot about what those first-born New Zealand children would have sounded like. I mean, they were old when they were recorded, but they were the children of the first settlers. 300 of them recorded. They went around areas in the Waikato, they went to Wanganui, They went all over Otago in 1948. Yeah.
And this was someone who realised that this was information, this was knowledge worth preserving.
Well, I don't know. I think what had happened was, it was when broadcasting was very new, and people started complaining that everything came from Wellington, and that they were not hearing anything from the provinces. And so they had this equipment that they used during the war for sending messages home. And they used to broadcast messages from soldiers overseas on the radio, or it would have been the wireless in those days. And so they still had these big recording machines. And so what they did is they put them in a van and they took them on tours. And there would be a technician sitting in the van with the machine, and they cut great big discs, you know, they were big discs like this, and then they were this long sort of cord that went into somebody's house or into the bowling club. So they were the first outside broadcasts, and so they went around trying to get pictures of little towns in New Zealand. I mean, originally it was to collect music, but the music was pretty dire. So then they did pioneer reminiscences, and people just loved it on the radio when they had the pioneer reminiscences.
But the byproduct of this was that you managed to hear how they actually sounded.
So we heard what they sounded like.
And what were the clues that led you back to southeast England?
Well, I think from the ones that we studied, there was only one out of the 300 that was northern. So we knew that they came from the south. That was in the majority. But actually, the material that led us to this view was not so much from our research as from the work that's been done by historians, by Jock Phillips and people like that on immigration patterns. And I mean, they have wonderful information. And we know that, the patterns of settlement were such as something like 20% from Scotland, 19% from Ireland, about 45% from England. So you could say that England was the winner in the end. And where did they come from in England? Well, they came from the south of England. And where did they come from in the south of England? There were more from the southeast. So they came from areas around London, Kent, that sort of area. That was very common. And so, if you like, we could say the New Zealand accent was formed by the majority of the settlers. And the same in Australia and the same in South Africa.
I'll come back.
And Maori were rural people, mainly, living separately from Pākehā on the Aotearoa. And then there's this massive change, whereby in the 1970s, 3/4 of Maori people are urban. So this urban migration, urbanisation, is a really major migration story in New Zealand history. And it leads to this other round of cultural encounter that brings us to the present with treaty settlements and the restoration of the Maori position in the body politic. Well, just New Zealand's history is very recent. So I think we're talking about, we're here at late, but thinking in terms of the late arrival of people, of humans in this country, land of birds. You're talking about this in later sessions. The Eastern Polynesian arrival was late in the span of human time. And the Europeans arrived from the 18th century, so that's why that's the modern world in the 18th century, so that's why I say we were born modern.
When you say late, I thought this session here, this is late, I thought it was latte. But anyway, since we're talking about cook, I come from a place called Ruatoria, up on the east coast, and up to just from us is Tolaga Bay. This is what Cook saw when he left, he said. I remember him writing this, he said, the first thing Cook noticed about the streets were swept clean and tidy. Buildings were low and carved. Old people were well inspected. They worshipped the Supreme Being in the form of Tani. There was a cacophony of birdsong, and there was a pleasant scent rented the air. So I thought, he arrived at a time of paradise. Hey, that's paradise in anybody's language. So, yeah.
I'm surprised
I don't know what's
the
going to do.
report hasn't picked up on that.